Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. Today's Thursday, November 14th, and I'm actually heading to Columbus a little bit later. I'll be covering Penguins Blue Jackets from Nationwide Arena and probably getting the crap scared out of me by a cannon because that's what happens there. Going to talk a little bit of Penguins, not a ton. Going to focus this episode actually on the Pirates. They made a couple of interesting hires, and we'll get into some Steelers talk too as we get one day closer to Steelers Ravens. Can't wait for that. First, want to remind you, though, that we're brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people answer what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. So the Pirates, according to sources, again, and Noah Hiles and Andrew Destin were right on this, they've hired a hitting coach, Matt Hague. You may remember him. I remember him as the hit collector. An interesting one. Brent Strom has been hired in a pitching capacity too, not to bury the lead, because I think the Strom one might be actually a little bit more impactful, or maybe not more impactful, but I like Brent Strom a lot. And I'll get to that and the reasons why. But let's focus on Matt Hague for a minute. Obviously succeeding Andy Haines, a very important part of the Pirates. They thought they were going to be better this year offensively. They should have been a lot better offensively. 24th in runs scored, 27th in OPS, the fourth most strikeouts. I don't think anybody watching or listening to this would look at their offensive approach and say it was good enough. That's completely fair. Not getting enough out of young players, etc. Matt Hague is not the route I expected them to go. A little bit on his background. He's from Bellevue, Washington. He's 39. You know him, of course, again, as the hit collector, and came up around the middle part of last decade. Actually did some really big things in the minor leagues with the Pirates. Was a pretty solid player coming up. Didn't totally translate to the majors. Was a 9th round pick in 2008. Debuted in April of 2012. Played, I think, 43 major league games, something in that range. Also played for the Blue Jays. Spent last year as an assistant hitting coach with the Blue Jays, was in their minor league system as well. And so Noah did a story that I really liked, talking to some people, Alex Presley, Neil Walker, Michael McHenry, people with some knowledge of Matt Hague, former Pirates teammates, about who this guy is, what he does. One quote that stood out to me, I'm going to read it. This is from Neil Walker. Taking an individual, knowing what their strengths are, and knowing how to get the most out of them, their abilities mixed with where they're hitting in the lineup, who they're facing that day. I'm sure that was something that allowed him to stand out during the search. He can relate to hitters across the board, from Ji-Hwan Bae, Oneil Cruz types to Bryan Hayes types. I see him being able to relate to every guy on the roster on the offensive side. So I chose that quote for a reason, because I think that's the biggest challenge awaiting Matt Hague and awaiting any hitting coach, really, and something I don't think the Pirates did a good enough job of under Andy Haines. Now, I thought Andy Haines took a bunch of heat that maybe he didn't deserve because of an organization-wide approach that they were trying to implement. And I hope the Pirates use this transition to Matt Hague as an inflection point to get away from it. I've been on this podcast before talking about how, when Ben Cherington was hired, when Derek Shelton was hired, they talked about having a player-centric approach, doing something in an individual way. The way it works for Oneil Cruz isn't going to be the same way it works for Andrew McCutchen, right? That seems fairly intuitive. But then how did we sort of backslide into this idea where everybody needs to see more pitches and work deep in counts? And that's what I'm hoping Matt Hague can bring to the Pirates. And anybody in that position really should be able to bring to the Pirates. They have a bunch of challenging cases. I look at Jack Suwinski as somebody who is a very big key to what they're doing next year. And you might hear the name Jack Suwinski and groan or get mad, or you're tired of seeing him strike out looking, all that stuff. I understand it. But from a hitting coach standpoint, from a realistic baseball standpoint, we're talking about somebody who in 2023 hit 26 home runs. OPS in the high 700s. There's enormous power potential there. Though the Pirates didn't get nearly enough out of him, they haven't done that. And I think they had him wrapped around the axle and thinking entirely too much. So the new hitting coach, I would like to see come in here with Jack, with Henry Davis, with a couple of other guys, even Oneil to an extent. See ball, hit ball. We're not going to overcomplicate things. Working deep into account, it might work for Andrew McCutchen. I know Connor Joe rubbed some people the wrong way. I think it was more usage than what Connor Joe is a player. We've got a pretty decent picture of Connor Joe. It's more kind of everybody doesn't need to have that approach, but it works for Connor for his career. It's fine. I just don't want to see everyone do it, and I hope that's something Matt Hague changes. I'm going to get to a little bit more on Brent Strom and why I think that's impactful. But first, I want to deliver a message from our friends with the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. I want to remind you, before I get into the read, that they're rebuilding after the hurricanes, as they always do. Such a wonderful, resilient place. So ready for an escape from every day. The Bradenton area on Florida's west coast is welcoming visitors. Our world-famous beaches are being restored to their pristine states. Beloved island businesses are bouncing back faster than expected, and our signature Floridian cuisine is just as fresh as ever. Don't wait. Start planning your Bradenton Gulf Islands. Visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com. And from me to you, from somebody who's spent a lot of time in Bradenton Gulf Islands in that area, could not be better. And no doubt it will be back and better than ever. And so they're in the middle of a really, really cool rebuild. And so that's going to be a little change to our mid-roll stuff. But okay. Getting back to Pirates talk, and Brent Strom, hired as an assistant pitching coach. They're still looking for another pitching assistant. This was basically coming off the heels of firing Justin Message, who was their bullpen coach at the end of last season. Brent Strom is a guy, if you talk to pitchers, people in pitching circles, think very highly of the guy. Spent the last 3 years with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Before that was with the Houston Astros. Has bounced around a lot, but has a really good brain for both old school pitching and analytics. He reminds me a lot, honestly, of Dewey Robinson, who's a consultant of some sort with the Pirates, formerly with the Rays. One of these people that just have an eye for how this stuff should work. And sometimes simple is better, right? Like we saw that with Garrett Cole going to Houston. Don't need to overcomplicate things. Happened to Tyler Glasnow going from Pittsburgh to Tampa Bay and what they were able to bring out of him. And I think Dewey has been really good in that role. And so I'm looking for sort of similar stuff with Brent Strom. Some of the guys he's been around, really, really impressive, and different pitchers too, right? Dallas Keuchel, Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke, Garrett Cole, Lance McCullers Jr. He's been in some really good pitching places. The Pirates, any way they can sort of supplement, buttress, whatever you want to say, their pitching program, I think it obviously is a very good idea. But especially in the bullpen where Strom has been, and you look at usage and how you want to deploy guys, and it's smart. And that's something that the Pirates need to be mindful of. I think they need to add in the bullpen, but I think you can make the argument that out of the guys they do have, did they get enough out of them? And I would say absolutely not. Like Bednar is going to be there. Colin Holderman's going to be there. Carmen Majinski, Kyle Nicholas, they're going to be there. No, they need to spend and supplement that group. That's fine. And that group can't be mediocre at all. So if you can get some coaching in there as well, some usage, what's the word I'm looking for? Like some usage tips, some better ways to approach this stuff. I really like it. I like Brent Strom a lot. All right, so Steelers one day closer to Steelers Ravens. There's so much we can talk about in this series. I'm so excited for this game too. By the way, a stat that I read that I didn't necessarily understand, or not understand, but like I've seen, but it didn't process. You know how that happens sometimes. Steelers have won 7 of 8 in the series. All 8 of those games decided by 3 points or fewer. Just absolutely crazy to me. Really looking forward to this one. If you have a chance, check out Joe Starkey's column. I thought it was really good, and I told Joe that last night. Taking an idea and distilling it down, but also finding interesting narrative in all of this, and that is T.J. Watt versus Lamar Jackson. Like we are watching the best defensive player in football against the best offensive player in football, and it's going to be a lot of who knows what wins out, right? But it's going to be a fascinating view. The Ravens offense scares me a little bit, if we're being totally honest. Lamar Jackson and the stuff he's done from the pocket this season. I mean, we know he can run. But he's really shown a lot as a downfield pass. Every Ravens game I've watched, Zay Flowers has been absolutely impossible to cover. So it's going to be a difficult task, obviously, for the Steelers secondary. Watt getting after Lamar Jackson is going to be very important. Something I read this week too in the NFL notes column. I didn't get to fit this in 10 thoughts, but it was an Albert Breer column, Monday Morning Quarterback, and I think it was Breer They made the prediction, but it was basically a poll of 20 GMs, assistant GMs, directors of pro scouting, all this stuff, like midseason award winners. And they actually had Dexter Lawrence as the defensive player of the year. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. I'm like, the Giants stink. Their defense is mediocre. We're really giving this to someone that's not T.J. Watt. I looked at the numbers. Lawrence, 9 sacks, 14 quarterback hits, 34 tackles, 8 tackles for loss. Watt, 6.5 sacks, 16 quarterback hits, 2 more than Lawrence, 33 tackles, about the same, 10 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles. How many games are you reckon on the Giants? Anyway, that's an aside, but it was just something that I wasn't able to fit in there. We'll break down Steelers Ravens a little bit more. We're already at 10 minutes. I had a lot more I wanted to get to, but if I go down that rabbit hole, it's going to be too difficult. But anyway, should be a good one. Best player against best player. Really looking forward to it, as you are as well. We'll talk to you from Columbus tomorrow. Prepare for Penguins and Blue Jackets, and we'll also do a little Q&A edition on Friday. Thanks so much for watching First 10, everybody, and see you soon again.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.